It's alive, this body. And that means it has many sensations. It is sensations. It breathes, and there can be awareness of breathing. Each breath has a beginning. And it's one thing to say that as a description. It's quite another to be intimately present at the birth of the breath. In order to create some stability in mind and in life, we can use these sensations of breathing in order to develop some concentration. In which case, we notice the rising to fullness, the decline, the disappearance, the vanishing of this breath. In developing concentration, the thoughts are irrelevant. All the various activities of mind are of no particular interest. I seek to be here with the sensations of breathing and the suppression of everything else. This is the development of samadhi, of concentration. Very helpful. It's a very mysterious thing, this awareness. Until we discover that we can turn it inward, it's preoccupied with seeking pleasure, avoiding pain, creating what it thinks of as security. But then someday, if you're fortunate, you get the idea that paying attention to the inner life is really crucial. And so we become very interested in thoughts, not their content, but the fact that they exist. We become really interested in mood and emotion. To ask ourselves, what is the mood of this moment? Are there thoughts dominant this morning, today, now? There are familiar categories of activity in the mind. The roots of suffering are greed, desire, wanting is one. Hatred, aversion, disliking is the second. The mind can also be restless, agitated, thinking, planning, remembering, figuring out the problem. Or, in a way, it's opposite, sleepy dullness, sloth and torpor. Or it can be doubting this process completely. Somehow or another we can forget how effective turning inward is. At first these aren't so visible, but in time they become really obvious. Oh, this is planning. This is restlessness and agitation. In general, also, we take as very personal, as urgent even, our emotions. There can be joy and happiness, and bliss, and sadness, and fear, and loneliness, despair. The teachings of the Buddha encourage us to find a place of great equanimity and awareness, watching the show. the experience of being a separate person, a separate entity, is profoundly lonely. There are those who say that the first great loss is being born, taking on a separate identity. And then there are many more losses after that. This practice allows us to experience the reality, the subjective reality of separateness, my thoughts, my feelings, the handful of people near and dear to me. And we practice loving what is. I aspire to love and accept this that I take to be myself exactly as I am in this moment. What a relief that is. For at least a few minutes, giving up self-improvement, a life of management by objectives to get where we want to get to, and to just be here. I aspire to love and accept this. Loving, of course, doesn't mean liking. It means accepting. And when I discover there to be pain or suffering, it is my intention to hold myself in sweet compassion, kindness, please let us allow ourselves to use the remarkable human capacity of visualization, of imagination. First, to really ground here in this moment where your body actually is right now. To be aware of feet and hands and legs and arms and back, and face. And no matter what happens in this visualization, you can always return right here, right now, to the present moment, in the safety of wherever you're sitting. And wherever you go in this imagination, this voice will go with you, and you can always come back. So I invite you to let yourself be transported to some very safe place. A place you know in the forest, or maybe at the beach, or maybe it's sitting in a rocking chair in front of a familiar fireplace, or wherever else your heart-mind would like to take you. And let yourself settle in there, perhaps in the sunshine, in a meadow, with your backpack beside you, or maybe it's at the beach and the wind is blowing a little bit. You can hear the sound of the waves. And wherever it is, in that rocking chair, you can relax even further and let your mind go into a beautiful reverie. Perhaps it's remembering a time when you stumbled upon a small trail and you decided you didn't need to take anything with you. You didn't need your backpack. You didn't need your worries. You didn't need any planning. You just found yourself on this trail that leads right from where you are. And you follow it with great ease. It's a beautiful afternoon. And it goes through the forest, and it smells like forest. That beautiful smell of the warm afternoon in the woods. And it goes slightly upward, and you find yourself stepping up over roots, over branches. It's a trail that's not been used a lot, though it seems somehow interestingly familiar to you. And you go along it for a short time or a long time, or probably just the right amount of time. And you discover that ahead of you, the trees seem to be getting thinner. There's more light. And you find your way to the edge of a clearing. And in the clearing, there's a lovely lake. And on one side, there are mountains that go up into snowy peaks. And on the other side, the land rolls out flat through lightly forested and then meadows and then great plains. You pause there for a little bit and you see that there's a big stone down by the water's edge. And you make your way down to that stone, and it all seems so beautifully familiar. Something very comforting about being there. And you make your way up on that stone, and you discover that your heart and mind turn toward love. And you find yourself perhaps with some old mantras like, may I be happy, may all beings be happy. Or may I live with ease and grace, and may all beings be free from suffering. And as you sit there in great ease on this great flat rock, you have the sense there's someone looking at you. And you look very slowly back toward the trees, and you discover that there's someone emerging from the trees who you recognize as your chosen ideal. Perhaps it's the Buddha. Maybe it's Kuan Yin. Maybe it's some wise elder you've known in this lifetime. Whatever the case, it's someone that you know you can trust. And they come toward you. And perhaps you bow, perhaps you embrace. In this world, there's certainly no need for masks. And there's not a lot to say except, I'm so glad to see you. And then this being sits down beside you, and together you start radiating love out into the world. Or you continue because it's your natural state. And this radiation of love, this wishing for the welfare of all beings, you send first to the north and then to the south, and the east and the west and above and below. In fact, in all directions. May all beings receive all blessings. May all beings remember who they truly are. And once again, you have a sense that someone is entering the meadow. And you slowly turn and you discover it's a beloved of this lifetime. Perhaps it's a teacher. Perhaps it's a pet. Perhaps it's a friend. But it's someone you feel great trust with and ease, and they come forward and do exactly what happened with the first person. Perhaps you bow to each other, perhaps you embrace. Perhaps it's a tearful embrace. I'm so glad to see you again. And they too sit down. And the three of you now, with great ease together, simply radiating love and kindness and freedom and compassion in all directions. And then gradually over time, one after another. And you can be quite specific. Who is it? Who is it that comes and sits with you? Who comes and shares the strength of their heart? And slowly around you grows a community of compassion and loving. And it can even include people with whom you've historically had conflict or relationships that were never resolved. Because behind it all, there is only the oneness. Beyond all separations and divisions, beyond all conflicts, beyond all opinions, there is, may all beings be happy. There is compassion for all beings. Everyone who takes birth, who experiences the initial separation. And so gradually the meadow fills. It's like a giant concert, but it's in silence, and everyone is simply wishing all beings well, experiencing the ease of being in a field of loving. And of course, remembering to include yourself in the great ease. And your mind may be very prone to visualization, and this is really easy. Or maybe it's just the idea of being loving and loved in safety. Or maybe there are warm feelings in your body. Doesn't matter how you visualize it. It's the clarity of the intention that matters. And now, you can stay here for a short time or a long time. It can be a few seconds that seems like a lifetime, or a lifetime that seems like a few seconds. For time doesn't really matter here. What matters is this moment. And now it's time to notice that at the edges of the group, people are rising. They get up, they bow, and they disappear into the trees. And one by one and group by group, slowly and quickly, people stand, bow, and you realize that while it's a little sad to see them go, you know you can meet here with them at any time that you want, simply to remember. And so one by one, they disappear into the trees until it's just 3 or 4 of you left. And then the last couple or 3 people stand and bow, and it's just you and the Buddha. It's just you and Mary or Kuan Yin, or it's just you and some beloved friend. And there really isn't anything to say except, I'm so glad to see you. I'm so glad to be here together. And then they too bow deeply and walk toward the woods and vanish, and you find yourself there, here, with nowhere else to go or to be. And then somehow you know it's time for you to return. And you stand. And then you turn, you take a last long look at the lake, at the sun coming off the ripples for miles, the cloudy sky, the white clouds puffy across the sky. And you turn and you make your way back toward the edge of the woods. And you turn one last time before entering the woods. And you bow to the lake. You bow to the sunshine. And you turn and you're on that familiar path. The path through the woods. Not very worn, but it's very familiar to you, especially now. And you make your way down over some branches and tree roots. And you go down all the way, and it's a short time or a long time or just the right amount of time. And you find your way back to that clearing in the meadow where you left your backpack, where it's still there, of course. Or you find yourself to the beach. Come out onto the beach and see the water rolling in as it has rolled in forever. The slight wind and the warm sun. Or maybe you find yourself in that rocking chair in front of the fireplace. The familiar jumping off points for that place in which you know you are loved and loved and loving. And remembering that you can come here anytime you want. You can take a second and you can be here. And now coalescing into this body here, where it's been safe all along in your familiar meditation spot. Feel the aliveness. Notice any pressures or contact. Bringing awareness now, allowing awareness to open in the hands and fingers, in the face and the eyes. And now noticing the intention to allow the eyes to open and letting them open. Making the effort. Notice that it takes some effort to pull the eyelids apart. And then noticing the forms that light takes. Perhaps if everything's working right, there will be little postage stamps to see. Little pictures of people. For those of you on Zoom, it won't change. It'll be my picture that's there. And if your vision is challenged in some way, it might be quite different. There might just be light. But what we do notice is that there's a change. And then if we'd like, we can continue that visualization of being by the lake. Here we are. Here we are, and we're facing each other, and we can assume our natural life-giving stance of wishing each other well. Carrying our way through the journey of our lives with our backpack and the bag, the bag of our shadow material that we drag along with us. Seeing with an intention of loving. Thank you very much for coming this morning, for waking up, for making the effort to be here. I think the only announcement I want to make this morning is that I will be not with you next week. I will teach on Sunday morning at 10, but next week I'm going to be on retreat at a little cabin at the beach, leaving electronic land behind as much as I possibly can. I'm going to need to be reachable because there may be movement on the building front. I may need to sign something. But that'll be very minimal. And I will return a week from next Tuesday. I'm going to stay at the beach till Monday, noon. So I'll be there 2 Mondays. That's pretty impressive. So, have you something you'd like to share or say? Did everyone make it back from the lake? We probably should. We probably should have buddies before we do something like that. In my late 20s, I took, with a brand new wife who I didn't know, we took 25 students to India for 5 months. And one of the most brilliant, one of the students came up with this, I think, was that we formed a circle, and everybody had 2 buddies. And when we got on the bus, we could say, "Check your buddies," and in a few seconds, you knew who was missing. It's a good system. It was always Larry. There was a fellow named Larry he was always missing. I think there must be a Larry on every trip. I just noticed. I'm happy to be the Larry on this trip, says Larry Breslauer. I'm glad you're the Larry, though you're different from the Larry that I'm speaking of, Larry. Hello in Seattle, Larry. Oh, there you are. Hi. You've been a very devoted journeyer on this journey this year. I'm very appreciative of your presence in my life, but also here. Oh, I forgot. I mean, perhaps this is self-evident, but these morning meditations will continue during my absence. The other teachers at PIMC will be having an opportunity to be with you. So I hope you'll come and be with them.
Good morning, Robert. Hi, Sangha. It's Jessica.
Hello, Jessica.
I just wanted to share how much I appreciate that visualization process and that reminder of, for me, kind of bringing in or calling on the energies and the love of people that have left my life, whether permanently, like my parents, or just those that have moved on because life has taken us to different parts of this, planet and country. And it's just really, really helpful in being able then to turn towards parts of me that want to accuse me of not having stayed in touch with folks, not having done, the right things, whether because I choose not to be on social media and I guess it just is helpful in clarifying for me the ways I try and really stay connected with people that are present and also still carry and honor the people that are no longer in my life. And it's just, I appreciate it. It's a good reminder and a good practice, and it's helpful. So thank you.
Isn't it remarkable? Remarkable how many shoulds we can have about how we should be. You should have written that letter. You really should. And that small conflict you had and then you never resolved. You really should go back and fix that. And it really is up to you, because the other person isn't so competent at communication. And it goes on and on, doesn't it? Jeez. You know this, of course. Marshall Rosenberg spoke of should as the most violent word in the English language. And, at first I shrugged that off, but I think it's really true.
I think in our household, it's always been the should. And just an aside, because we were talking about this from friends last night, absolutely a no-go in our household was shut up, because that just felt so hateful and so mean. So they both are the SH efforts. There are others, but yeah.
Right. Learning to love that part of ourselves which is so shouldish is really important, isn't it? Well, there it is again. I should be better. Funny. Sometimes it seems very funny, but other times it gets pretty heavy. Mm-hmm. That's one of the great benefits of living in the present. Imagine how much lighter life is if we accept, oh, gosh, the past is over. Imagine that. It's really over. I can't redo it. It's done. Phew. Thanks, Jessica. Ah, if only. Eileen posted in the, yes. If only I hadn't done this. If only I had done that. You carry all the ingredients to turn your life into a nightmare. Don't mix them. We carry all the ingredients to turn our lives into love and joy. Mix them. Mix them. I probably should mention too that I didn't check with Jim. You're such a stalwart force in the world, but that I'm presuming you'll be here holding down the fort next week too.
Yes, boss.
Oh, though I should say this, I don't think the Facebook and YouTube will be happening. We should look into that and see if we can make some of that happen. What happened last time, Jim? Did that go to Facebook or YouTube at all?
I think it depended on who was in the driver's seat. I think
Gary does.
Candle and Gary know how to do it. I'm learning. I mean, I do it, but I have no idea what it looks like at the other end. So,
Okay, thanks. It's funny, I have a should. There is a should, which is softened a lot, but that the broadcasts should be clear, and they should be every day, and the sound should work, and it should all be very professional. But it isn't. Particularly the Facebook and YouTube ones, they've fallen apart in a variety of different ways, and I don't even have the bandwidth to go and check. Did it work? Did it not work? It's like, I hope it worked, but there's only so much one can do.
Good morning, Robert.
Hello, Sandra.
I think it's endearing, that it's what it is. It is what it is. Sometimes every once in a while I come upon, the slick stuff. It's too slick. It feels disconnected. It feels too much like marketing, or
Yeah,
it doesn't feel. It feels disingenuous. In fact, I went to one where there was advertising that popped up every about 8 minutes.
really?
I couldn't stand it.
What were they advertising?
Everything, ridiculous things that I
Oh,
would never even consider spending money on.
huh.
Yeah, it was quite something. So I thoroughly enjoy it, and I also enjoy this. I'm curious where you are right now, but this change of venue is kind of fun too.
Oh. Well, I'm actually in the same room. I have a recliner here that I brought from my office. This is my client chair from my office. Um,
Ah,
I was I have a dear old friend, Julie Goodmistad, who's a yoga teacher's yoga teacher. She travels all over the world. She's a physical therapist as well as a yoga teacher, and she had a byline in Yoga Journal for years. I don't know, maybe she still does. But anyway, she's an old friend, and I took my sore back and hip to her on Wednesday.
hmm.
And some pieces came together that they were there all along, but I didn't see them somehow. That I have degenerative disc disease in my low back
Oh,
that I have been calling just stiff muscles.
mm.
And there's quite a lot of pain. I have a ridiculously high pain threshold. And so I've been doing a lot of things to hurt it and to make it worse, like carrying 75-pound bags of gravel and things like that. It it hurts, but I figure, oh, it's just I'm getting old, and so well, actually, it's crushing nerves. And so she has recommended that when I can, I not sit up straight because that's really bad. Like, and when I do my days sitting over there, by the end of the day, I hobble out of here.
Oh.
And so, actually, I'm as well as in my little reclining little thing. I also have an ice pack here this morning, and I'll do that 2 or 3 more times today. And I'm going to see if I can't. It's really inflamed right now. I'm in a kind of crisis with it that I didn't know what it was.
Hmm.
And so I'm sitting here more during the day, and I'm doing lots of stretching and yoga and pulling that joint apart as best I can. So it's a wake up moment for me that what I read. Jennifer read it to me yesterday. It's either 2 or 4 million people are diagnosed with this condition in the United States every year. It's a there's Tim waving. It's a function of old age, older age, and Julie's of the opinion that I should be able to cool down um, this flare up that I'm having, and that I'll be able to walk again. Because I've been walking, but like in terms of going for a walk with Jennifer, walking a mile or two, I haven't been able to. And I've just thought, oh, these muscles need to be stretched and get body work. Well, actually, no, I have a degenerative issue. So that's why I'm here, and it's fine. I like it here in my recliner. It's a little awkward. I've got a microphone balanced on the arm and so on, but it's okay. It's great, actually. What privilege! I have I have a fancy chair over there that sits me upright nicely, and I have a recliner that I can recline in just the right position.
Well,
And
it's good for you to model for us looking after the body. The body has to be functioning in order to do the rest of the interior work, right?
and it's fascinating to me how once again I had the X-ray done of my spine or my hip and back. Uh, I think it's 8 months ago, and it says very clearly degenerative disc between L4 and L5, moderate to severe.
Hmm.
I didn't even remember that part of the report.
Huh. Robert, you look after yourself.
It's absurd. I just was okay. Well, that's that. But then all I have to do is exercise and stretch. Well,
Mm.
there's truth to that, but also to know that there's a place where the disc is down to nothing. So, but isn't it interesting that I managed to deny that?
Yeah, why?
Why? I don't know. I guess because it's, and I've actually, one of the, here's the sadness now. It was a relief to be with Julie, but I also left her house quite sad. It's, oh my gosh, this is really real. I am running up against, like, I've had these fantasies that I would backpack again. There's a couple of places in the mountains that I really love. I don't think I'll ever go there again. I mean, I could make a big deal. We could rent llamas or possibly, but it's probable that I won't do a lot of things again, realizing the danger to my body. So there's a coming to grips with, I really am getting old.
Yeah, I think for athletes, this is the loss of the abilities to do those grand things.
Well, and this, I mean, outside my little house here, there's a beautiful little walkway now. And I don't know, it's 3 months ago or so, I went to just look at rock, and I loaded over a ton and a half of rock, or no, not that much, but a lot of rock into the back of my car and brought it home. And over the next 2 days, I carried it all to the backyard and spread it out. My back hurt like hell. But I thought, well, I always bounce back from these things. So, well, actually, I didn't bounce back very well. And gardening, actually, I need to be much more careful about my posture gardening. Jeez, that's old person stuff.
Yes, I'm at the edge of that, and it's quite interesting.
Yeah, it also opens up more compassion.
Yes, I've had not nice thoughts about people and their sore backs. Oh, for heaven's sakes. And now I've suffered. And now I realize it's so invisible, and it's so painful.
Right. Well, it really does. It's hard to be compassionate for things that we've never had. We can extrapolate some, but it doesn't. I know I had really bad migraine headaches for a long time in my life, and then they went away. I have a lot of compassion when people have migraines, because I know it. I know how crippling it can be, and I've been through a divorce and custody battle and some really horrific things in my life. And when people come speak of that, I get it immediately. There's a little bit of a step to the things that I haven't experienced. Sometimes a lot of
I think I've known you for 15 years, and it still surprises me oh no, another point of suffering for Robert. Oh dear. You've got quite a pile.
They keep coming on. Well, and I've been very blessed. Really, in terms of the I'm not black living in the ghettos of America. I'm not. I haven't been afraid every time. Every time I go drive my car, because of that. I mean, there's so many sufferings I haven't experienced. I've been shielded from. So life just over time gives us the opportunity to understand more and more, I think. Pamela Braun just wrote in. I don't just. Caution, I often don't see things in the chat, but Pamela wrote, bicycling can be very helpful. That's one thing Julie said, just get back on my bike. So yeah, we all get our dose though, however it comes down the pipe. Oh, I also have great compassion with depression. Jeez.
Robert,
Tim.
you mentioned the extrapolation, and I think that's really key. Really key in that. I think that's great that you mentioned that. Because, like you say, you can only extrapolate so much, but you can extrapolate a lot.
Yeah.
From spending a night in jail is not the same as a long-term prison sentence, but you can extrapolate.
Mm-hmm.
Or being bullied
Yeah.
by football, bullied by football jocks when you're in junior high is not the same as being, in constant danger, which you can extrapolate. And I think that's a tremendous tool.
Yeah. Well, shall we head off into our next adventure? Anybody have anything else you'd like to share before we go? So let's go out with our traditional may all beings receive all blessings. Bhavatu Sabbe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabbe Mangalam. Bhavatu Sabbe Mangalam. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Goodbye, dear friends. I will see you soon, and let us take refuge in the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha along the way. Bye-bye.
Well,
Thank you, Robert.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Ready for the leap to hyperspace? Here we go. Whoops, it didn't work. All right, friends on Facebook and YouTube, thanks for being here. And I will not see you next week, but the other PIMC teachers will be here, and I hope I will check with them and see if we can't maximize the keeping this going on YouTube and Facebook. So I'll be gone till a week from next Tuesday, except Sunday I'll be here.